Hi everyone. So I've been wanting to do more writing videos, so I thought I would talk about my multiple works in progress, some that have been abandoned for a little while, but I am going back to. So I am currently working on a book that I have entitled Jackalope Fangs. And Jackalope Fangs is going to be the first in a series called The Tales of Shadow Oaks, or just Tales of Shadow Oaks, which is basically about a town where some stuff has happened and spooky stuff goes on, right? I wanted a kind of spooky, mysterious, supernatural kind of stuff, goosebumps, scary stories to tell in the dark-ish kind of thing for adults, basically. The thing you will not find in my books is excessive gore, um, overly like explicit scenes, right? I just don't care for those. Nothing wrong if that's your thing. It's just not mine. I don't care for the overly romantic plots in most things, and I can't stand gore. Like, I can't stomach it, so I'm not gonna write it. So yeah, Jackalope Fangs is about a woman named Guinevere who has moved back in with her parents. Her mother is a writer. She writes horror novels, usually based on mythology and folklore, or like that's the main thing that she writes. And her mother really likes jackalopes. If you don't know what jackalopes are, they are rabbits with antlers. This is supposed to be a cross between a jackrabbit and an antelope, but there are some that are just like regular small rabbits. Pictures, obviously, because they're not real, with just like regular deer antlers. But that's to give you an idea. That's what a jackalope is. So her mother is talking about jackalopes, and then Guinevere starts seeing jackalopes at her job. She's like finding antlers, and she thinks she's losing it. And the family takes a trip to the woods, basically, to go camping. And her mother, in the middle of the night, follows a jackalope. And now they have to find where their mom went to and what's going on. And they discover some secrets about their town. I'm going to make the series where, it's continuing characters. There will be some new characters, but we'll probably mention some of the other characters in those other books. So, you might understand some things more if you've read this book or that book, but you're not going to be totally lost. So I don't want it like completely anthology style like Goosebumps was. But it's not going to just be like just one straight story, right? It's not going to be just jackalope, jackalope, jackalope thing throughout the whole series. We're going to have some other things in there. I already have some ideas that I've thought up. Maybe things with doppelgangers, uncanny valley, ghosts, those kind of things, I did write one. Sorry about that. I had to pause for a second as I'm making a late dinner. So, also realized my hair is sticking up. So yeah, I had already written a doppelganger story, which is in my book, I Don't Know These Shadows. It's called Red Bobby. If you can't hear a fan, like I said, I'm cooking. Very sorry about that. So yeah, there's a lot of plans for the Tales of Shadow Oaks series. But the first one is called Jackalope Fangs. It's about, like I said, a woman who moves back with her parents, and her writer mother follows the things she is obsessed with, and secrets about the town. That's like the gist of it. Now, other things that I have planned out and things that I need to go back to, well, there's many of them. Let's start with the fantasy work in progress that I have. So far, the working title is Crown of the Storm Queen. That's probably going to change, but that's just like my working title right now. That has gone through so many different changes. Characters have been moved around. They've been renamed. Most of the plot has changed. So, I don't really take this stuff seriously, but I like the idea of zodiac signs. I think they're fun, but I don't think that you're nice or you're an a-hole because you're a Libra or an Aries or whatever, But I think they're fun. And I was thinking one day, I want to write a story that's kind of based around zodiac signs. Like, I've written a lot of short stories, but I want to write, like, maybe a full-length book, right? Because I'm getting, more into, fantasy stuff. Mostly read YA fantasy. Now I'm moving on to, adult fantasy, right? I loved Three Dark Crowns and Caraval. I liked that, too. That was really fun. Lunar Chronicles is more sci-fi, I guess, but kind of a fantasy sci-fi mix if you really think about it. And I love The Hunger Games, which is dystopian, and The Giver, again, dystopian. So I like those stories about what could happen if this happened and that happened, and just a different world from ours, but also ours. So that's kind of how the story has been created and has evolved. But let's go back to the beginning, I guess, before I lose where I'm at. So I decided that I wanted to write something that was based on zodiac signs and mythology, folklore, legends, stuff like that, right? Because I'm also exploring my own personal spirituality. As of right now, I pretty much consider myself an eclectic pagan. But I've been looking more into Slavic paganism, Celtic paganism, and Germanic and Norse paganism, mainly because of my background. At that time, I was really wanting to know more about Norse paganism, so Norse/Germanic paganism, and still some Celtic as well. I was also really looking into Kemetic paganism, which I'm still looking into all that stuff, but at the time that I had that book idea, it was mainly Norse, Kemetic, and Celtic. I was watching a lot of Kemetic YouTube channels. So yeah, that's where those ideas were coming from. That I wanted something based around that idea, or those ideas. And so I mentioned stuff on Facebook, as you do. And I'm I want to write a story based around zodiac signs and people who have elemental powers based around their zodiac signs. And people who are kind of confined to some characteristics of that. And so I asked, what sign should I make my main character? Because I could have just done a Sagittarius like I am, but I don't want to do that whole self-insert thing. Definitely not for the main character, right? You want to write something unique, not just put you in there. So I asked, and my friend Sam's Gemini, right? I'm fairly certain it was him, because he is a Gemini, right? So I was thinking that because Geminis are twins, I should make the main characters twins, right? All Geminis are born as twins. Now, a little side note here, or whatever, I guess you could say. I have to get your water here first. I do understand that just because you have a magic system and things are magical in your world, that not everything can be explained by just magic. Obviously. However, some things are just magic, right? That's the kind of the whole point. When I had posted up this idea on one of the groups that all Geminis would be born as twins, people are like, well, how does that happen? Does the egg split when, the time comes for them to be born? And I'm thinking, I haven't thought that far yet. I mean, that is an interesting thing to think about. But again, there's not always going to be like a scientific explanation for magical things. And again, I don't mean that your magic system should be just lazy and it should just be magic, right? But sometimes that is the best explanation, right? So know when things should be just magic and when things should make a little bit more sense, right? Or it should have more thought put into it. And I'm not saying I won't explore anything for that. But again, I think you need to suspend some disbelief when you are talking about people owning dragons and Pegasus and stuff, which it's going to happen in my book. I'm going to have these two people, this married couple that my main characters know. They own a farm and they have dragons and Pegasus. Birthdays are important in this story because of reasons, and I've mentioned this in my other videos. They really can't be honest about who they are. People think they're just Geminis, but they are actually cusp children, and so they're really not supposed to have the second ability, which is the ability of controlling water and stuff. So, a birthday scene, I'm already thinking that up. That's going to play a big part because they are friends with other Gemini twins who are just Geminis. Like, they're born earlier in the Gemini, sphere, I guess. And they're fine, right? And so they are going to go and kind of rent this farm. It's almost like a petting zoo, right? Like they're gonna have a petting zoo of like dragons and Pegasus, a unicorn, right? Because we live in a fantasy futuristic North America or United States, basically. So that's some of the stuff that's going on. I decided that part a little bit later, about the whole dragon farm kind of thing. The use of power and keeping things secret has always been like the idea that I had, but the personalities and the circumstances changed greatly, right? So, like, my main character, well, the two main characters were originally Amora and Lavender. I have now changed Amora to Ayala, and unlike Amora, who did not really like to use her power to, or like, I shouldn't say she didn't like to use her power, but she didn't really like to abuse her power, I guess, because like kids that were like other air signs like to use their powers to make storms and other things, and she really didn't think that she should do that. I have changed that, and it's going to be where there was an incident where she created a storm and for obvious reasons, like I said, they can't draw attention to themselves. She promised her mother that she wouldn't do it, but she kind of still does, right? So Ayla is going to be a little bit more of, I guess you would say, the rebellious one. And there was going to be something where something happened with the Geminis, but now I've changed it because it seemed a little too similar to some other books. So I kind of changed it to where they just have other things going on. I've also changed it now that there are 4 sisters instead of just 2. And I don't know if I'll keep the name Lavender. I like that name. I wanted something that was associated with air, wind, sky, or something to do with June and summer, right? So I like the name June. It's cute. Short, cute. So I was thinking possibly of calling the sisters Ayla, June. I wanted to put Iris in there because rainbows, right? They're in the sky, but they're also made by like light and like water from rain, and it can be kind of like a secret cusp kind of thing that kind of pays homage to the fact that they have these water powers, but also kind of have like the other characters think, oh, rainbow, sky kind of thing. So I might possibly keep that name. Ayla is a for sure thing. Definitely. So, and I also like the name Tuli, which is Finnish. There's also Tuliki, which I think is like little wind or little air. But maybe just Tuli. I'm thinking Ayla, June, Tuli, and Iris. I think those are fun names. I think I was kind of overdoing it, looking for names that meant wind. So, there's, like I said, there's 4 sisters now. Most of the plot has stayed the same, about them being Geminis, about them having elemental powers, about them facing some kind of trouble with their powers, but the original idea has changed a little bit, which that usually happens, right? There are going to be other characters. See, what I wanted to do was have the country split into 4 sort of kingdoms, right? It's more like territory kind of things, and it will kind of be brought up that they're not separate countries, they're more like sections, and people don't understand why some of these people who are in charge of these sections have such respect given to them, such titles, right? There is going to be a side character who plays a big part because she will be tasked with technically hunting Ayla and her sisters, even though Ayla and them won't know that at first, but that's going to come up. And that character's name has changed so much. I am stuck between Orania and Estrella. I'm liking Orania. So that is the basic of my fantasy work in progress. Now on to some of the other stories that I need to go back to. I will for sure write the Zodiac Sisters kind of story. It's going to take a lot of research because, like I said, I am incorporating different mythologies and stuff, and I am studying through websites and books to be accurate, to be respectful, and to just write a good story that makes sense, right? So that's for sure going to be written, and I don't think I'm going to make any more plot changes. I just have to do my research and get ready. So the other stories that I semi-written, and some of these stories I've written a few thousand words already. Like, I think some of them I got up to like 15,000, right? Which is a good chunk. It's nowhere near the 50,000 like you were doing with Nano and stuff. That's where some of those ideas, like my fantasy Zodiac story, I was thinking up that also for Nano. I've had stories where I wrote a certain amount and I had certain characters, and then I had a different idea and I felt that the personality of this character fit better in the other story. Some stories completely changed genre and setting and other things. I love stories that have friend groups and siblings, especially sisters. Like, again, I loved the Hunger Games. I liked Cinder. There was Cinder Peony, her adoptive sister. There was Caraval, Donatella, and Scarlet. Why did I forget the name that you would hear more often? Then there's the three sisters in Three Dark Crowns. Arsenal, Mirabella, and Catherine, right? So, like I said, I really like sister stories and friends, that kind of thing. I also really like survival stories. I didn't really like Hatchet. Again, Hunger Games fits both of those. Really like The Wild Robot. Beauty Queens by Liva Bray. That one is one of my favorite books. There's probably more that I can think of. So, yeah. I also really like sad stories, if you couldn't tell. Like, I love The Fault in Our Stars. I liked all of John Green's books. I liked The Lovely Bones. That one was heartbreaking. Probably a few others I can think of. So, at some point I decided that I wanted to, and I still want to, write a YA, I guess you'd call it either coming of age or contemporary, those two things. Again, think something along the lines of like John Green, right? I wanted to write a story about two sisters who have issues going on in their life and everything. And I wanted them to have unique names, because that's one of the things I liked about my favorite book. Oh, you know what? I was also thinking of Kate DiCamillo, and like Because of Winn-Dixie and stuff like that. Although John Green is YA and she's more middle grade, because I wanted to write middle grade novels as well. But I was thinking that this story would be a YA story. I was debating between middle grade and YA, but I think the ideas that I have fit a little bit more for YA. So, but I like the idea from like Hunger Games and Kate DiCamillo's books about having characters with unique names. But I didn't want to overdo it, but I still wanted them to be unique. So I was going to call it Olive and Sparrow. Those were going to be the sisters' names, right? Like Sparrow, like the bird, and Olive. Why? Because sparrows are cute, and I like, the symbol of birds and stuff. And Olive, because it's fun, and I like olives. So there you go. But yeah, it was going to be like one of those, yeah, YA contemporary novels about life, basically. And there's going to be some serious topics that come up with that one. But I have written different things, and then I also changed plots, and then I started writing another book where that came up with different characters. See, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to write certain things in Olive and Sparrow, so I kind of took it in a different direction. But then when I started writing the other book, I just wasn't feeling it, basically. And I felt like some of the stuff that was in that book was Olive and Sparrow's story. I think if you're a writer, that'll make sense, right? That is the character story. And sometimes things, they just don't work out, right? Some plots just work better with certain characters. You'll change the name of their parents. You'll change the name of their, co-workers if you talk about their job or whatever. You'll change where they live. You'll change their hair color. It's just, I kind of feel like I've already written several rough drafts in my head, right? And some on my phone and on my laptop. Like, I probably have written a full-length novel by now. If you were to mash all my stuff together, I've definitely written something. I had an idea for a middle grade fantasy novel about a girl who receives a magic mirror for her birthday. I was doing that on Kindlevella, and I want to rewrite that. One Kindlevella's not up anymore. But I want to kind of fix that up a little bit and maybe make a series out of that. I think that would be fun. I haven't put too much to that one, and so far that one is sticking to being middle grade, the story of a couple siblings, and the whole magic mirror thing. Not too much of that one has changed. I don't know if I'll keep the same names. I don't know if the whole start of the book will be the same. But I think that's the one so far with some of the least changes that I want to do. I was starting a book that I called Kendra in Java Land, and it is about a girl named Kendra who goes to work at her aunt's coffee shop, and she discovers that the coffee is magical. Now, I was thinking of actually changing this to an adult novel. And it's not because, I don't like YA, because, like I said, some of my favorite books are YA. But I feel like we just don't have enough adult magical things, right? And I know they're out there, but they're just not as, I guess, promoted, celebrated as magical books for kids and teens, right? We don't have an adult Coraline or Harry Potter. I'm talking about the books, not their authors. They're horrible people, but the fun of those books, right? That's what we want. Yeah. I want magical things for grown-ups, because we deserve fun books too. It doesn't always have to be vampires and the romance and love triangle between vampires and werewolves and other things. Again, nothing wrong with it if that's your thing. Some of it's okay, but I want to bring something new. So why not a woman who, and she still can go work for her aunt, right? A woman who goes to work for her aunt, maybe she's not feeling very confident, there's things going on. She's an adult, there's stress, right? There's work, there's bills, and she just goes in for a job and she discovers magic. I think that would be so cool. I wanted to, and this kind of came with the idea of my Zodiac story. And some of it's kind of changed over time. So when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about like a whole book, but then I thought I should write like short books. And I'm kind of going back and forth between like doing a zine or like just a short like little book. And I wanted to write short stories based upon the elements, right? So like maybe a story with like fire creatures and like, I don't know, a water dragon for like the water book, that kind of thing. And those were going to be like really small because they're just like short, like little books, right? Maybe just a few stories in them, maybe some poems, I don't know yet. I'm also working on more poetry. I have a lot of poems I'm thinking of, and I'm not sure if I want to do just strictly poems in there or if I want to put like some short fiction in there as well, like flash fiction, short stories, etc. There's been some spooky-ish concepts and mysterious or mystery kind of things that I have played around with. I've written like a few paragraphs to start a story about, maybe a spooky kid, or like one was about two friends that were attacked by a river and they're trying to figure out why this happened and all that stuff, and it's going to be more like a ghost story kind of thing. So yeah, there are so many ideas that I have had that have changed over time. Some of the stories that I have in my books that I have published, I self-publish, some of them have changed. Like on this channel, if you go to my writing profile, not my writing profile, my writing playlist, I have a story called Jar of Earth. Now, I always knew it was going to be something with a jar and dirt and something symbolic and everything, but the story was very different. And I like how this one turned out because I put it in the book. But yeah, it started out as something totally different. I just had that thought in my head of something to do with the earth and some other more emotional things and stuff. I guess you'll get it if you go and listen to the story. You can listen to it. There were just stories that were, like I said, characters' names changed, some basic plot ideas changed. But, yeah. I just have written so much, and there's just been so many changes. And, that's just a part of being a writer. And I have learned to be more patient, especially looking back on my first book and the mistakes that I made, not just grammatically, but just Story-wise, formatting. I still love the book. It's still very important to me. Oh my god. You just have to get your pets, don't you? You just have to get your pets. Oh my god. Yeah, so just looking at all that, I am definitely taking my time with things now. Sorry, I kept getting interrupted by the cat. Anyways, I am taking my time now to make sure that when I put a book out there, especially if I'm going to put it out there for, you know, if I'm going to put it out there in hopes that people are going to read it and possibly buy it, I want them to get their money's worth. I want to be proud of what I put out there. So, yeah, my stories are going to go through rewrites. They're going to go through character changes. They're going to go through description changes. You know, I want it to make sense. I want the worlds to be believable. I want the worlds to be unique and fun to read about. I want you to feel things, feel sad, feel connected, feel happy when they're happy, laugh sometimes. So, because I want to be the best writer that I can be and be unique, I have a lot of work to do, right? I have many unfinished projects. There are some projects that are probably going to get deleted because they are going to mesh into other things and create something new. So yeah, thank you for sitting here and watching this video. I just wanted to kind of talk about my writing a little bit because I don't really talk about my writing too much. And this is going to be a book channel. Well, a book-ish channel. Like, I talk about other things too, but my main thing is books. So thank you for watching. Thank you to all my subscribers. Let me know what you think. You know, I know people watch these, but, you know, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know you're here. Even if it's just like an emoji. And definitely, if you have anything to say, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're writing. What you like to read, etc. So again, thank you to the subscribers, viewers, etc. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.